Hello, everyone. We're going to be working with absolute value inequalities. Before this, we were working with absolute value equations. And this is going to be very similar. So you are going to end up with two different equations, and then we're actually going to end up shading on the number line. So let's start with this very first example. And just like before, we do want to isolate the absolute value before we do anything else. So we can see that the absolute value of k has this minus 6 beside of it. So we're going to want to get rid of that minus 6 by adding 6 to both sides. Whenever we do this, we get the absolute value of k is greater than or equal to 1 plus 6, which is 7. Okay, now we do have the absolute value isolated, so we can drop the absolute value signs and make our two different equations. So one of our equations here is going to be k is greater than or equal to 7, which was the exact same without the absolute value. And then our other equation is going to be k is less than or equal to negative 7. So we actually have to change both signs. We have to make this 7 a negative 7, and this is the only extra step from solving the equations, is that you actually have to flip the greater than or equal to sign as well. So you have to change this sign and this sign, which is kind of confusing because they're both called signs. Okay, so let's shade this on our little number line here. And I'm going to have 2 points, one at 7 and one at negative 7. So I'm going to go ahead and draw my 2 points. And I am going to close in these points because we have greater than or equal to and less than or equal to. So since they can be equal, we're going to shade in these points here at 7 and negative 7. Okay, so our first one is k is greater than 7. In other words, we have this little alligator here. This is how a lot of people like to look at it. So what would make the alligator want to eat something on this side? In other words, what is bigger? So numbers that are bigger than 7 are 8, 9, 10, etc. So that means that we're going to be shading in this direction. Okay. And then k is less than or equal to 7. If you don't know what the less than or equal to sign looks like, then just think about your alligator always wants to eat the bigger number. So what would make this true? Well, this would be true if this was negative 8, negative 9, negative 10. So that is going to be in this direction. Okay, anytime that you see a big blank in the middle here, just imagine a really big or written in there. So this is going to be k is greater than or equal to 7, or k is less than or equal to negative 7. So this is going to be our answer here. Okay, let's work out another one. And in this problem, we can see that the absolute value is not isolated, so we are going to have to get that by itself before we can do anything else. The absolute value is being divided by a positive 5, so to get rid of this, we're going to multiply both sides by 5. Okay, we're going to get the absolute value of x plus 4 is less than or equal to 2 times 5, which is 10. So now we're going to get our two different equations, and I'm just going to come to this side right over here. So our very first equation is going to be dropping the absolute value signs and then solving from there. The other one is going to be dropping the absolute value signs, changing this sign, and changing the sign on the 10. So here's our first equation. X plus 4 is less than or equal to 10. Exact same equation, but just dropping the absolute value. And then our second one is going to be x plus 4 is greater than or equal to negative 10. So we do have to change both signs here. Changing the inequality sign, and we're changing the sign from positive to negative on that side. Okay, now we do have two different equations where we're going to be solving, and we can see that to get x by itself, it's having 4 added to it, so we're going to subtract 4 from both sides. Okay, so we're going to get x is less than or equal to 10 minus 4, which is 6. And then our other one, x is greater than or equal to negative 10 minus 4, which is negative 14. Okay, so let's do our two different things here. One is going to be at 6, and since this does have a little equal to sign under, I am going to close in this circle. And then our other one is going to be at negative 14. So let's look at what this problem is stating. X is less than or equal to 6. So if you don't understand the less than or equal to sign, let's just look at this as what value would make this true? What would make the alligator want to eat the 6 and not this number over here? Well, we want this number to be bigger, so that means numbers that would make this true are 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, et cetera, et cetera. So that is in this direction here. Okay, I'm not going to shade just yet. So let's look at our other one. X is greater than or equal to negative 14. Again, if you don't understand it, reading the inequality sign, what would make this true? Well, that would be negative 13, negative 12, negative 11. So that would be in this direction. So whenever we're shading here, we're actually going to shade in the middle. Okay, and whenever you don't see a big gap in the middle, that means that there is an and between here. So we're just going to put an and. X is less than or equal to 6, and X is greater than or equal to negative 14. Okay, let's look at another example. And I'm just going to draw my little errors here as well, since I drew them in my other problem. Okay, but let's move on to example number 3. And again, the very first thing that we want to do is isolate the absolute value sign. So let's do that here. There's our absolute value. It's having 10 added to it. So what we're going to do is we are going to get rid of this plus 10 by subtracting 10 from both sides. Okay, and before in my equations, I was putting in a line separating, so let's just put that there. Okay, so subtracting 10 from both sides, we're going to get the absolute value of b minus 8 is greater than 22 minus 10, which is 12. So now we do have our absolute value by itself. So now we can drop the absolute value signs and make our two equations. Our first one is going to be the same. B minus 8 is greater than 12. And then our second equation is going to be flipping this inequality sign and making the number on the other side negative. So this is going to be b minus 8 is less than negative 12. Okay, now we just need to get b by itself. And in both situations, b is having 8 subtracted from it. So the opposite of subtracting 8 is adding 8. So we're going to add 8 to both sides. And I'm just going to go ahead and do it for both equations. Inequalities, sorry about that. So we're going to get b is greater than 12 plus 8 is 20. And then our other one, b is less than negative 8 or negative 12 plus 8, which is negative 4. Okay, so we have our two different things here, and notice these are not equal to. This is b is greater than 20, b is less than negative 4. So there is no equal to sign on the bottom of this. So what that means is at 20, we're going to draw an open point here, and at negative 4, we're also going to draw an open point. Okay, b is greater than 20. In other words, b is bigger than 20. That's why the alligator wants to eat it. So numbers that would make that true are 21, 22, 23, 24. That would be shading in this direction. And the other one, b is less than negative 4. In other words, we want b to be smaller. So that would be negative 5, negative 6, negative 7. So that would be in this direction. And now we can shade. So that's going to be this way and this way. And since we do have this big gap in the middle, that means that there's an or between these two. So this means b is greater than 20 or b is less than negative 4. Okay, let's do our very last example. And we are going to be isolating the absolute value again. All right, and here we're having 8 added to the absolute value. So the opposite of adding 8 is subtracting 8. So we're going to get the absolute value of 4b minus 7 is less than 17 minus 8 is going to give us 9. Now we do have our absolute value sign by itself. So we can drop our absolute value and make our two equations. The first one, 4b minus 7 is less than 9. And then our second one, 4b minus 7 is greater than negative 9. Okay, now we're solving in both situations. And in each of these, v is being multiplied by 4 and then subtracting 7. So we need to get rid of this minus 7 first by adding 7 to both sides. And I'm just going to go ahead and do it for both equations. Inequalities. I said that last time too. Okay, so we're going to get 4b is less than 9 plus 7 is going to give us 16. And then our other one for v is greater than negative 9 plus 7 is negative 2. Now in each of these equations, v is being multiplied by 4, so we are going to need to divide by 4 on both sides. And whenever we do this, 16 divided by 4 is 4, so we're going to get v is less than 4. And then in our other equation, whenever we divide by 4, we're going to get v is greater than negative 2 over 4. But negative 2 over 4 can be reduced to negative 1/2. So we're going to make this v is greater than negative 1/2. Okay, so let's just go ahead and do our shading. And on each of these, we're going to draw an open circle because we don't have that little equal to sign underneath it. So let's draw our circle here at 4, and then 1 at negative 1/2, which is right between negative 1 and 0. V is less than 4. Okay, so since V is less than 4, hang on, just wait. Yes, okay. Since V is less than 4, that means that we're going to be 1, 2, 3, 4 things in this direction. So I'm going to point it this way. And then V is greater than negative 1/2. So that means 0, 1, 2, 3, et cetera, et cetera. So we're going to be shading between these 2 points here. There we go. And whenever we're shading between, that means that there's an and I realized that I ran out of room a little bit, but I'm just going to write and right here, and I'm going to box what I actually want the answer to be. So our answer is V is less than 4, and V is greater than negative 1/2, okay? So the reason there's an and is because saying these two things is actually in the same area. So that's that and there. The or, you can't be greater than 20 and less than negative 4. So that's why there's an or instead of an and in these problems. And that's why there's an and in these. Another way that you can look at this is if you look at the original problem, the absolute value is greater than. This one was also greater than. Greater than, that would be great or, okay? So anytime you see a great or than, that's great or. So we had our ors. And you don't have to use this. The math does it itself. And then the other one that you can use is less than, okay? Less than. So here we had the absolute value was less than, absolute value was less than, and we actually used our and here. So I'm going to write this up top. Great or than and less than. Okay, less and. All right, a little bit weird, but that does work if you're looking at the absolute value sign. Just make sure that you're looking at the absolute value and not looking at just like where the thing is pointing. So my absolute value could be on this side, so just pay attention to that. Okay, and with my greater than, that was my green that I had highlighted, and my less than was my orange. Okay, I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. Please let me know if you have any questions. Have a great rest of your day. Goodbye.